There's a Met Office warning in place here. Not huge amounts at low levels, but certainly some of the higher routes fairly nasty for travelling on overnight, with gusty winds and extra hazard, meaning that snow is blowing around. Rain for southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, turning drier for much of England and Wales. Could turn a bit misty, not turning too cold. Saturday then looks like dry and bright for a good chunk of England and Wales. There'll be some sunshine here. It should brighten up through southern Scotland and across Northern Ireland too. The far north of Scotland, they're always staying wet, although the snow becoming increasingly confined to the tops of the mountains. Then showers coming in during the afternoon across Wales and southwest England. Temperatures on the high side for the time of year in the south, double digits, maybe 13 with a bit of sunshine, and slowly turning milder across Scotland as well. Sunday promises a lot of cloud, even some fog early on that could be slow to clear. There'll be a sprinkling of showers over central and southern England and northwest England and western Scotland too, but some sunny spells also likely. Temperatures close to average for the time of year, 6s and 7s across the north, 10 or 11 further south. Goodbye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Camila Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30.
We had Grant Shapps on last week. He was talking about how defence spending is now creeping up to 2.25% of GDP. Ben Wallace's predecessor suggested it should be 3%. We hear that we've got the smallest army, I think, since the Napoleonic Wars. Numbers are down. There's a question as to whether we can staff frigates in the Red Sea. Why haven't we sent aircraft carriers? What's your impression of the situation?
Well, I don't think it matters how much you spend, it's how effectively you spend it. And we spend it very ineffectively. We have lots of scandals about defence spending. And I think partly because of the monopoly position of some of our defence suppliers, we don't get good value and we don't get reliability. This latest story in the Telegraph is that HMS Diamond, which is our ship, which is out there defending the Red Sea, doesn't have the capability of firing a missile from the ship to the land, so it can't participate in the attacks on the Houthis. So in order that we can participate in the attacks, we're flying RAF aircraft from Cyprus, which is a very long way away. When I was Defence Secretary, I ordered cruise missiles for our nuclear-powered, but not nuclear-armed submarines. And I think we have 6 or possibly 7 of those. But last autumn, it was reported that 5 of those were out of commission, were not available. We have about 21 aggressive surface ships. So we've got 2 aircraft carriers, then we've got frigates, and we've got destroyers. But at any one time, you can count on about half of those not being available because they're under refit or whatever. So we have a minimal surface fleet now. And for whatever reason, it doesn't seem that we're able to deploy a submarine to the area that can fire cruise missiles. Our 2 aircraft carriers, built at enormous expense, are sitting in Portsmouth.
Which seems to most people ludicrous, at least with what's going on.
It doesn't seem ludicrous to me.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good evening, you're with GB News. I'm Sam Francis. The headlines just after 11 o'clock. It's now believed that the chemical attacker, Abdullah Zaidi, is most likely to have died, and police say his body may never be found. In a briefing at Scotland Yard this afternoon, police said their main working hypothesis is that Zaidi has gone into the River Thames. The 35-year-old was last seen on CCTV leaning over the railings of Chelsea Bridge in London. For those watching on TV, you should be able to see him walking across that bridge just before 11:30 p.m. last Wednesday evening. That was around 4 hours after the incident in South London. We understand marine units will now be carrying out searches of the River Thames to try and locate his body. Police also added earlier that the victim of the attack on the 31st of January is still very ill in hospital and is currently unable to speak to officers. Prince Harry has criticised Piers Morgan's continued attacks against him after he reached a settlement for the remaining parts of his phone hacking claim against the Mirror Group newspapers. It follows a High Court ruling in December of last year that editors and executives did know about extensive phone hacking between 2006 and 2011. The judge also accepted that Piers Morgan knew that journalists were involved in phone hacking while he was working at the Daily Mirror. But the former editor has criticised the Prince following the settlement today, saying he was doing it for financial gain. The Israeli Prime Minister has announced a plan to evacuate civilians from the crowded southern Gazan city of Rafah and to defeat the last Hamas fighters there. It comes as international pressure on Israel is intensifying over its threat to launch a ground assault on that area. The US says it won't support any military action in Rafah without a guarantee of protection for civilians. Joe Biden has also described Israel's response to the attacks on the 7th of October as now over the top. Back here in the UK, Rishi Sunak has said that President Putin's accusations that the West and NATO are the cause of the Ukraine war are clearly ridiculous. In a TV interview this week, the Russian president told Tucker Carlson that the invasion was necessary to prevent Ukraine from posing a threat by joining NATO. Putin also said he has no interest in expanding the war further into Europe or having any dialogue with the US president unless, he says, certain demands are met. As we've been hearing this evening, a convoy of tractors has brought traffic to a crawl at the port of Dover as farmers hold a go-slow protest. The farmers say they want better prices for their produce, less red tape and protection against cheaper foreign imports. It's the latest sign of growing anger across Europe after similar protests in Spain, Germany, France and in Belgium in recent weeks. Kent Police have said they're addressing the situation together with the Port of Dover Police. Rishi Sunak has today published his personal tax documents. It shows that he paid more than £500,000 in UK tax last year. The Prime Minister saw his earnings rise to £2.2 million. And just over £139,000 of that total income came from his MP and Prime Ministerial salaries. Rather than a full tax return, though, Downing Street published a summary of his taxable income in the UK. And finally, the record-breaking Bluebird will return to the Lake District to go on permanent display. That's after a long dispute over who owned it. Its pilot, Donald Campbell, died in 1967 when the hydroplane flipped into the air and disintegrated as he attempted a new water speed record. Campbell's family gave the vessel as a gift to the Ruskin Museum. However, the motorboat had been at the centre of a dispute involving an engineer who recovered the wreckage. The Ruskin Museum has, though, today confirmed that the vessel will now be displayed in the museum's Bluebird wing permanently. And for the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen if you're watching on TV, or if you're listening on radio, you can go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your run through the next day's newspapers with three comedians. I'm one of them, I'm Leo Kirsten. Tonight I'm joined by the man with more unsold calendars than W.H. Smith. It's Lewis Schaefer.
At least I have a calendar.
And Nick, the big dog who's so big he should be wearing a muzzle, Dixon.
Nice. Did you write that?
I did write it, I wrote it myself.
You're getting better.
Thank you. Thank you for the live DVD commentary on review of my performance.
You're welcome. How's your show going?
It's all right. It's on tomorrow. 8 p.m. So tune in and watch it. Cool. Okay, that's the chit-chat out of the way. Let's move on with tomorrow's front pages. We've got the Times with "I'll ease tax to reward hard work," vows Sunak. The Daily Mail has "Iranians recruit pilgrims to spy in Britain." The Telegraph leads with "British firms giving up on British workers." The Mirror has "King bonds with Fergie over cancer." The Daily Express leads with "Boris mulling over pleas to help Tories fight election." And the Daily Star has "Baldies are #1 love gods." And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with Saturday's Mail. Lewis, what have they got?
Well, good news in the Mail. Iranians recruit pilgrims to spy in Britain. UK Muslims told to target British Jews and Tehran critics when they get home to Britain. And this is because the Iranians are Shias. They're asking other Shias, they're Shia Muslims and they're Sunni Muslims, and they hate each other because Islam is the religion of peace. And there are 400,000 Shias in the UK, and some of them go to this place called Karbala, which is in Iraq, for pilgrimage. Supposedly 20 million go a year. Wow. And they're asking, and why this is news that the Iranians are spying on Britain.
But this is more than spying, and this is, I mean, we've seen a huge influx of immigration from the Muslim world into the UK, and this is some of the blowback from
So
that.
who are they supposed to ask to spy? Of course they're going to ask their own people to spy. Of course they're going to ask that.
Yeah, but I mean, you say,
How
of course.
is that news?
This wasn't. I mean, Nick, this wasn't presented to us when Tony Blair decided to liberalise and open the borders. He didn't say, "Oh, this is going to be great because we're going to have lots of Iranian spies in here threatening Jews and threatening Iranian dissidents."
Yeah, no, he didn't say. It would have been fair if it had said, "Yes, your cleaner will be cheaper, but you will be spied on by hostile regimes who want to kill you." That would have been fair. Yeah, so they've got in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and this is being sold as a positive by a Whitehall source here who says, well, look, this is because it's very difficult for Iranian spies to operate on British soil. So we're doing such a good job of shutting down Iranian spies. We have to get this radical Islamic...
import Iranian spies.
I mean, that's one positive, I suppose. It's a tenuous positive.
But you know what? I don't know what people are worried about. Because, first of all, on the priority of targets and who they're going to kill, it's Jews first. Screw the Jews. And then Israeli embassies, then British officials. There are very few British officials. Yeah. And then probably Christians. And you people don't think you're Christians, so you think you're safe.
But I mean, as a Jew, does this worry you?
No, because we've had to live with this for years. From what I've heard is, and I'm trying to remember who told me this, is that a third of all Jews have already left the country.
Wow.
They can spell the writing on the wall.
So, where have they gone? To Israel?
They've gone all over different places where there's opportunities.
Probably not Iran.
I don't have the details, but does it worry me? We're so past worrying.
You're a lot more relaxed than I thought you'd be. If Josh was here, this would be a very different story. You're quite chilled about it.
I'm more of a Jew than Josh is. You know what?
As somebody who's not a Jew, does this worry you?
Of course it's worrying.
This worries me.
I categorise this under sort of shocking but not surprising. It's like, I want to know how much discount they've got on their council houses, you know what I mean? Because we're so used to this stuff now. This is so standard. Yeah. You're just like, OK, yeah, Hamas live in Barnet. These people are spying on us all day. Yeah, of course, it's ridiculous and absurd, but it's sort of too late. As Lewis says, it's too late to even be shocked by anything.
Well, Hamas are basically the militant wing of Barnet Council at this point. Moving on to the Telegraph. What have they got in the front cover, Nick?
So the Telegraph has British firms giving up on British workers. Outrageous. So this was from the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, or the NIESR, as it's sometimes known. And basically, it's this whole thing, Brits are not working. So a growing number of firms are registered to sponsor work visas to fill these 900,000 UK vacancies. And more than 9 million people of working age have dropped out of the jobs market. And it's gone up massively.
Huge number.
I know, it's gone up massively since the pandemic. I say since lockdown, they say pandemic. And yeah, 5 million, more than than 5 million now on out-of-work benefits, up from 3.5 in 2015. And I suppose, the usual criticism is, well, Brits won't work, so you have to get immigrants to fill it. But these are probably recent immigrants anyway. They're probably just different immigrants who also won't work.
The dependents that are brought with the people who are, working 3 days a week in a care home.
Visas. I mean, this is my theory, but who knows? But whatever it is, they're going to have to. Firms are being forced. People just won't do the jobs. Yeah. Maybe they're rubbish jobs, though. To be fair.
I mean, do you think? I mean, for a while we had austerity, and it seemed that the authorities were being quite rigorous in screening people. Before just dishing out benefits. Now it just seems to just chuck the money at people. Do you think we need to stop chucking money at people so they have to go out and work for the money?
Well, what happens is the money gets chucked to the people coming in, and the big businesses get cheap labor, which is a form of theft. They're basically giving the people's money to the big businesses like Amazon to hire people at discount rates, and they're going to get some government money. What I said yesterday was brilliant. Which was the Tories steal and labor waste.
Yeah, that was good, actually.
And this is first of all, it's so derogatory to British people. I've lived here 23 years, and how many times have we heard how lazy British people are? I'd like to give the finger to the people who say that.
That was actually Wednesday you said it, unless you said it again last night.
What,
I
about
wouldn't
what?
put past you. That thing you said it on our show.
I know, I said it on our show, but I said I would repeat it.
But that's not last night, but hey, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's a minor detail.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think I said it last night as well, because I
imagine you probably say it a lot now. That'll be your new catchphrase.
It doesn't matter. Moving on, what's on the front cover of the Eye, Lewis?
Good news! I'm going to say that to everything. Because it's a comedy show. We want to have a good time.
Right, so see what you're doing.
This is Biden memory lapse. This opens the door for Trump to return as U.S. president. And what's happened is that Trump is basically, there was a report done, or not a report, by some prosecutor who declined to prosecute him for basically taking illegally documents, classified documents, the same thing that Trump is being tried for. And they said, we can't prosecute him because he's an idiot. He's, what is the word?
Said he's got cognitive decline.
An elderly, well-meaning man with no memory.
Which would be fine if he'd retired as president. But I mean, if he's not fit to stand trial, doesn't sound like he's fit to run the biggest country or the most important country in the world for the next 4 years.
Yeah, and there's this argument that, this guy, Special Counsel Robert Hur, was a Trump pick, and they've released this as a bit of sort of politics. But it is also clearly true. Yeah. And we saw him saying he just was speaking to Mitterrand, who died in 1996.
Well, yeah, in fact, we've got a clip of him talking.
As you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? I guess I just forgot what was going on.
So that was Joe Biden confusing Mexico with Egypt.
Yeah.
I mean, I get them mixed up all the time.
But the truth is, Democrats don't care. As long as the policies, he's a figurehead. He's like the King of England or something.
No.
So you say no.
Yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong because if you notice what's happened is there has been a big change. All the media, even Sky, MSN in America, The Guardian, Independent, they're all covering this. Has Biden lost its story? They're not putting any spin on it. They're openly covering it. And if you look at the press conference, they were very hostile to him. There's that one guy in there that's always hostile, but they were all hostile. And the mood has changed. They've turned against him.
No, because they think he can't
win. Right.
That's the only reason they're against him. He's just a figurehead. The person who's running, it's like his wife is running the country, or Barack Obama. And the fact is, he's taking direct orders from Team World in Davos.
Yeah, but this suggests that the Dems do care, though, now, because there's just been...
Because they're afraid.
They're afraid to lose. And also, it looked ridiculous against Putin, who can recite all of Russian history for half an hour off the top of his head, and Biden can't say his own name. It's a ridiculous contrast.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, both parties have this issue where if they just had somebody else in, as the figurehead, as the presidential candidate, they'd have a clean sweep. If Nikki Haley was the
That's not
the Republican
true.
front runner,
That's not true.
It should
she'd
be
win
awful,
by
though.
17
and
points.
Trump is still absolutely on it. He's incredibly healthy. He's incredibly sharp.
Incredibly healthy.
And 77.
Only in Scotland could Donald Trump be considered healthy.
I've seen his blood test. Nikki Haley might come in as a Democrat candidate. That's my big tip. Because who are they? They must have another candidate now, right? They're finally moving on Biden. He's gone, right? He's going to go. But who are they going to bring in? There's Newsroom. He's got a terrible record. Michelle Obama. People talk about as a long shot, which could happen. I mean, Roger Stone
she doesn't
said it.
want it.
I think it's time for a woman instead of another man.
Yeah, well, exactly. Nikki Haley, she's perfect. She's a Democrat anyway.
Yeah.
She's, like you say, she could win for the Republicans.
Yeah.
Bring her over to Democrat. It could easily happen.
Trump is more and more beloved.
Thank you.
Even Louis Schaefer is beginning.
Are you going to vote for Trump? Can you still vote in America?
I can still vote
I know
in
you've been kicked
America.
out.
Can you vote in both countries?
Yes, no. I can't vote in this country because they don't want someone as reasonable as me to vote.
Right.
Go back home, vote Trump, and then stay there if you want.
Yeah, no.
Can you vote by post?
I could vote by post.
And who would you vote for?
I never vote because I don't want to take responsibility for what happened.
He would vote Trump. He's just scared to say it.
OK. Well, that's it for part one. But coming up, we hear from an asylum seeker who's decided to leave the UK, and Ed Miliband has gone missing, hopefully for good. See you in a couple of minutes.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camila Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Claire, you want to talk by cars growing by a couple of centimetres a year?
Yeah, well, 1 centimetre every 2 years.
Okay.
It's unrelenting because the people are so fixated on the big SUVs. The sales have gone through the roof, and yet it's James Nix, the analyst for Transport and Environment campaign, said the author of the report on the trend said, spurred on by sales of the largest SUVs, vehicles are getting wider every year. Now, what does that mean for us? Well, it means that our roads weren't...
Comfortable ride, beautiful engines. I mean, it's luxury, it's gorgeous.
Well, as I know, I used to have two, but I don't...
You used to have two SUVs?
Well, one SUV at a time, but I had two brands of them. But I'd no longer drive in London now because I just don't see the point because of the ULEZ, because of the, you can run down a thing and get fined.
Parking spaces, whatever.
The growth in car size also causes issues for their drivers. The report found that largely luxury SUVs, which are about 2 metres wide, no longer fit in off-street parking.
That's true.
They also leave too little space for passengers to get in and out of the vehicles in typical off-street spaces, and they're about 2.4 metres wide, the report found. And I'll tell you, I was stuck in a bus last night trying to get home, and the buses couldn't move because the streets were too crammed with all of these massive cars either side.
Chelsea tractors.
And it was gridlocked.
Yeah, but maybe they're not the problem. Maybe the buses are the problem.
The buses take people to their place of work and get
I'd
them
like
home.
to know when, because when I go through London, all I see is empty buses.
You're lucky. Every time I'm on one, they're full.
Well, they're obviously only full at rush hour. You see, the thing is, property developers, when they do high-rise car parks or, they build a multiplex cinema and there's a car park attached to it, that's not my fault that I can't fit into their space. It's their fault. So
it's all driven by money, isn't it? The more spaces that they have,
exactly.
the more people they can get.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Now, next Monday, February the 12th at 8 p.m, GB News will be hosting a People's Forum with the Prime Minister in the northeast of England. This will be a live 1-hour Q&A where you can put your questions directly to him. So why don't we hear from the Prime Minister about how you can get involved?
Hi, Rishi Sunak here. Join me for a special GB News People's Forum Live on Monday the 12th of February. I want to hear about the issues that matter to you. For your chance to be part of the audience and to put your questions to me, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com. See you there.
And kicking off this section with the Telegraph, finally, the Tories have a successful policy to reduce immigration. But it's by making this country so terrible, asylum seekers are leaving, Lewis.
That's an actual good point. So this is, actually, it's good news. Good news. The Telegraph says, don't come to England. There's nothing here, warns Channel migrants. And this guy, Allah Eldon, he's from Syria.
I think I've seen that film.
Yeah, and, he's from Syria, and he's 25 years old, and he's not happy. He's on the beach, he's homeless, and he wants to go to Germany to find work. And but the truth is, he should be allowed to stay because he's whining, which is such a British thing to do. He's really feeling at home. He's not sitting here saying, oh, he hasn't thought, oh my God, I'm going to say this country's great and people will like me.
He's already got the British self-deprecation.
He's got the...
and mourning and entitlement.
I wouldn't be surprised if Rishi hired this guy. He's like, don't come to Britain. Honestly, just don't even bother. It's not worth it. And by the way, Starmer will be even worse. You know, just throws that in at the end. Because it's actually a great advert for not coming. This is a great policy. This could work. I mean, he's talking about making fires on the beach. It's like Mad Max. It's like a horrific vision of England.
He's living in an upturned rowing boat.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very tough life. And he's just saying the system is broken. England has come down. Isn't that just totally right?
Yeah.
England has come down in the world. It's just, it's not like before. There is nothing here. That's so perfectly true. Bleak that a migrant making a fire on a beach has perfectly just condensed what's wrong with our country.
How does he know what Britain was like? You know what's funny?
He's seen the films, he's read the books, he knows what it used to be.
Well, this is the trouble.
Churchill, Thatcher.
So much of the small boat migration, the illegal migration, is driven by TikTok. You know, people are sold this dream. They see people posting on TikTok with the wads of cash in these hotels that are paid for by the taxpayer. But not everybody gets that. Some people get the baby Stockholm and, you know, £12 a week or whatever.
We need to start putting out videos of, like, migrants cooking like a dead dog on a beach and saying, like, this is the reality of life in Britain. You think it's going to be this, and they show, like, the pomp of the empire. But the reality is this. And then we just... That would be very effective.
Or you don't even have to show that. You could come to my flat and see me, who's a migrant, in my ex-council flat in Peckham.
Yeah. Would you live like this?
Would you live like this? And then you'd show my girlfriend.
Doesn't even have a toothbrush.
You know, not even wearing pajamas, just spouching around. But it's okay.
But it's also an interesting insight into the life of a migrant, because he wants to work as a plasterer. I mean, and it's a reminder that, you know, most migrants are just guys who want to come here and work and make a life in some way. They're not all, you know, acid attackers or, you know, they don't all hate the West.
Only about 50%.
And he came here to avoid conscription into the army in Syria. So yeah, I mean, he's got sort of valid reasons. I mean, I think it's just it's a shame that our asylum system is so broken and the whole migration system is so broken and so gamed and misused that we can't.
Even if he has valid reasons, that doesn't mean he should be allowed to come. But valid.
Lewis, they're pulling up the drawbridge after he's got in. We've got the Eye now with news that the Home Office are complaining that Suella's crazy law won't let them deport migrants, as if those woke lefty open border civil servants wanted to deport any migrants anyway, Nick.
Good point, yeah, but it's Braverman's crazy law, their words not mine, costs $1.5 million a day because 22,000 migrants can't be removed. So at least half the asylum seekers left in limbo will be living in costly hotels, likely to be costing the taxpayer more than $1.5 million a day. It's a very nice hotel. That's for one person. But so what it is, it's a loophole because there was this legislation, the Illegal Migration Act, which required the government to remove illegal migrants, but only applies to those who entered from the 20th of July, 2023. But the same legislation bans them granting asylum to anyone who entered the UK illegally on or after the 7th of March. So there's this weird little limbo period, and there's all these people in this grey area, 22,448 to be precise, and they can't do anything with them. And so people are blaming Suella, saying she rushed it through. I mean, I think she rushed it through because she knew she might not be in that long. She's like, I've got to do something. And so, you know, at least she tried to do something, you know, but it's just our asylum seeker.
Can we just amend it? Can we just go back, rub out? I mean, this is why Tipex was invented. So you just scrub out the date that's wrong and then you backdate it so you can deport.
Deport them all. Isn't that the simplest way? They're all just on the beach anyway, like making fires and struggling, trying to be plasterers.
And we have a lot of boats that have landed. Might as well put them back on the
put them back on the
boats. That doesn't. Can I tell you?
It's so good. You've come to England, you just become a proper gammon since you've come here. It's so
I just stopped caring. I was very left-wing.
There's such classism in people who came here on a plane.
But virgin. And the point is, I'm glad that glad that Nick explained this thing, because I didn't understand. This is one of those complicated stories. Yeah. It's like British law. No wonder nothing can
It
be
almost
done.
is British law. Not even like it.
It is British law, but it's very, very arcane and complicated.
OK, well, we've got The Independent now with some fallout from the Putin-Carlson interview. Apparently Boris scuppered negotiations to end the war, and you can believe that because Putin said it, and he wouldn't lie, would he, Nick?
Good point, yes. Putin repeats nonsense claim Boris Johnson scuppered efforts to end Ukraine invasion. Nonsense was the Independent's word before everyone tweets me on either side of this. But yeah, his claim, to anyone who saw the interview, it was a very long interview, I watched it all, was that Boris, they could have had peace. Boris came in and scuppered it. Boris has said in the past that's complete nonsense. So, you know, you can choose who to believe, Boris or Putin. They both got a slightly dodgy record on telling the truth. But, there is an argument. Some people say Boris was too jingoistic about the war. There is an argument, though, that you needed to make it a bit difficult for Putin to discourage further invasions of other countries he might fancy a pop at. Then again, you might say, is that worth the death toll, given that they were never really going to win this war against Russia, it seems to me.
But they essentially have won the war against Russia, because Russia is now in this horrible attritional phase. Russia is losing, vastly more troops and vehicles than Ukraine is, and Ukraine is now in a defensive phase, and the borders really aren't shifting. So Russia's basically spent its entire military force just running up against a brick wall.
I know you love all the military stuff, so you probably know a lot about it, but surely Ukraine's going to run out of funding before Russia runs out of people.
Well, it really depends on the West. I mean, the West committed to providing funding. It's just sad to see the EU, for example. I think, one good thing about Trump and American Republicans wanting to cut Ukraine loose is that Europe needs to shoulder the burden. It's defending Europe's borders. Europe should pay. And it's ridiculous. Europe has made €1 trillion available for net zero, which is a useless thing. It's basically just useless communism for stupid people. And they're just giving $50 billion to Ukraine over 4 years, and that's just derisory. It's pathetic.
I love that you're the sort of balanced host here. You just call it useless communism. Now one of us has to be pro-net zero for this.
Well, I'll be pro-net. I can't be pro-net zero, but I'll be pro-Russia. And I think you are right. Damage was done to the Russians to prevent them from doing this kind of trouble to Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland. So it was a victory for America. Now it's time just to let Russia take what it has, because it has got a right to be in those places. Those are Russian-dominated areas.
No, but that's not true, because the people who live there, I mean, it was Ukraine. The borders were agreed. It was, there's a treaty. Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons, and the West made commitments.
How could you trust a country that stupid?
Well,
to give up their nuclear weapons.
To be honest, the message this whole debacle sends to the world is never trust the West. Right. And never give up your nuclear weapons. And if you don't have nuclear weapons, you better get some, because they're the only thing that's going to protect you.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, as a Ukrainian, okay, according to DNA testing, as a Ukrainian, 100%, you feel for those people. You also feel for the Russians. I've said it before. I've been told not to support Russia. It's one of those things. But we're going to need Russia against... We're going to need Russia.
Man, the only thing they got that we can't make is those little dolls with smaller people inside them. We've got the Telegraph now. And the Tories have launched a website to find Ed Miliband. Fingers crossed it won't work, Lewis.
Yeah, good news. I'm going to keep on saying that. I think it's so funny. Tories launch where's Ed Miliband website if the Green pledge U-turn, and this has to do with Starmer and the Labour, which said they're not going to guarantee they're going to pay $28 billion on useless net zero projects. Yeah. And so Ed Miliband, whose idea it was, he hasn't been seen in 141 days. But then again, he's not eating any hot dogs or whatever he was eating, bananas. What was he eating? What was Ed Miliband?
Oh, bacon sandwich.
Bacon sandwich.
Yeah, I mean, it's been community noted because apparently he was seen 4 days ago. But and Miliband's blaming this on Tory austerity yet again, their so-called scorched earth policy. Yeah. He's saying, well, they did this. The reason we can't afford this is Tory stuff. And it's all kind of laughable. But this is also quite a laughable campaign. I mean, Where's Ed? Who cares? I mean, you know, it's not 2015. Why are the Tories going after Ed Miliband? They could make hay with this policy the way it's been shelved, and it was Starmer's only policy, and now it's shelved. But why go after Ed Miliband, who no one cares about? If you've been looking at their tweets or X posts, they're kind of embarrassing on the Conservative side. Have you seen they had one with Rishi with the whiteboard that says "Here today, gone tomorrow"? Yeah. It's just getting ratioed into oblivion.
Just anything that rhymes.
Yeah, it's just really cringe stuff, and this is another example of it. I mean, why go after
You know
Ed
why?
Miliband?
Can I ask
where's Tony Blair? That's a bigger question. Yeah. He's writing a leadership manual for Keir Starmer. He's far more relevant.
Well, he's the Barack Obama for Biden, and for. But the point is, why do the Tories want them to have this $28 billion policy?
They don't.
They should be against
don't.
it.
And it's a ridiculous policy. And hopefully, you know, one good thing that the Tories have done is sort of force Labour into this climb down over their green communism. Anyway, that's it for part 2. Join us in a moment for a trans victory, wasteful councils, and who's replacing Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. Find out soon.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
We have let Islamist extremism into Britain, we've let it fester, and now we've let it win. Our absolutely spineless surrender merchant political top brass are rolling over while government ministers wear stab vests and quit their jobs in fear. Veteran Tory Minister Mike Freer has had death threats from Islamists as well as an alleged arson attack on his office. The motive there has still not been established. He's standing down because he doesn't want to die. I cannot emphasise how important this is. A minister of the government is quitting his job because he doesn't want to be killed by a lunatic jihadi. And our Prime Minister has said absolutely nothing. Nothing. A spokesman for Rishi Sunak said he was saddened. Is that it? Our Prime Minister should have been out on the steps of Downing Street saying that we will not be intimidated. We will not let this continue. Enough is enough. What does he do instead? He tweets about XL bullies. Yeah, fantastic. Where's Keir Starmer on this? Well, he's conducting focus groups on how to get the Muslim vote back, so he's hardly going to come out all guns blazing, is he? Ed Davey? Well, there's no way a Liberal Democrat leader would come out and admit that his ideology has helped turn Britain into a poster nation for multicultural failure. The police have let protesters, which include rabid anti-Semites, rampage around London every flipping Saturday for the last 3 months, and today they are finally saying that they don't support some of the protests, which in the past have included a now banned terror group and people holding up anti-Jewish signs. They're saying, please don't march down Whitehall. All right, but will you do anything to stop them if they ignore you? I doubt it. I honestly cannot believe that we have sunk to the level where a serving minister stands down because of threats from extremists and our Prime Minister just doesn't feel the need to address it.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Telegraph now with a Labour MP complaining that David Cameron has used gaydar against him. I assume gaydar is some kind of targeted energy weapon, Nick.
That's correct, Leo, yeah. It's Sir Chris Bryant. Is he a sir? David Cameron used the gaydar thing against me a couple of times, which turns out to mean he had that picture, the famous picture of him in his underpants, which was for a dating site, and he's saying that was kind of used against him occasionally in little jibes. And that's all that is. Basically, it's a long puff piece because he has a book out. That's all this is, really.
Puff piece? You went with that phrase.
That's what I went with, and there was no pun intended, but thank you for probably getting me in trouble now. But, yeah, so it was...
I don't get it.
Oh, well, don't try to get it now.
No.
The point is, look, Chris Bryant, he was wrong on. He was quite bad on lockdowns, wasn't he? He was incredibly pro-lockdown. He referred to anyone on the sort of sceptical side, the kind of Great Barrington Declaration side, as a crackpot. So I'm not particularly keen on Bryant, though he has had some hardships in this. So I did sympathise a little bit. It's just a piece about his book. What can I say? He also had that scandal with the properties, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah, where he made, what is it, 650,000 gross on selling his 2 properties, and taxpayers' money had gone to towards the mortgages.
Right. Interesting. Do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah, totally I do. This guy, he is a Labour MP, right? And he wrote this book about being gay, and he mentions that in 1835, 2 gay men were killed for being gay. They were put to death in this country, which is horrible. But what is this?
200 years ago.
200 years ago, and he's gay. He doesn't want that to happen again by letting in millions of people who want gay people dead.
Does he actually say that?
Well, he's Labour, and that's what Labour is all about, mass immigration of people who want gay people dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a...
Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them, am I right?
You see it as it happened like Hamtramck in Michigan, so it became the first Muslim-run council in the United States, and the progressives helped the Muslims get into power, and said, this is so wonderful, this is a real, Trump's going to hate this, and then the first thing the Muslim council did was turn around and ban the pride flag. So, I mean, this is... Liberals experience the consequences of their actions.
He's going to regret it. If you remember A Clockwork Orange, which you both have read or seen the movie, is the Liberal guy was helping out the criminal because he felt sorry for the criminal. And then what did the criminal do? He went to the rich Liberal guy's house in Oxfordshire and did despicable things to the guy's wife.
The message is never help anyone.
The
Guardian
don't let Lewis on
with
TV.
Another court victory for people who believe in biological reality, Lewis.
Well, good news, really good news. And this is the Green Party, there was a spokesman for the Green Party. His name was Shahar Ali. He was a spokesman. And the Green Party is pro-trans, pro-left, all that stuff. And he believed in biology, so the guy was reasonable. And they fired him. Because how can you be a spokesperson for the Greens if you don't believe in what the Greens believe in? And so he took him to court and he won $9,000. They had a right to fire him, this is what the judge said.
So this is, we've seen a lot of people who've expressed gender-critical beliefs being fired for expressing those beliefs, and then won in tribunals because you're allowed to have gender-critical beliefs. But this isn't quite the same thing. This is, when it's a Green Party spokesman, you're allowed to fire people if they don't have the same, their opinion doesn't align with policy.
You should spokes.
Well, this guy was a spokesman, right? That's the main point that Lewis didn't say enough. But the point, the judge basically ruled that it was procedurally unfair, but that you can get rid of people from a party. It was a technicality in the way they did it. But I still think it is a victory. I mean, either way, it shows how deranged the Green Party were, that their policy is that biological sex doesn't exist. So I'm taking it as a victory. And there are these victories happening. I think Lindsay Smith is going to be another one, hopefully. She was spied on by Newcastle Football, allegedly, or it looks like she might have been spied on, and it was passed on to Newcastle Football Club, and that was for gender-critical views. So we're seeing more pushback against this kind of unfair repercussions for having perfectly legitimate views, which is that biological sex is real, which is just a fact.
And it's insane that, this trans ideology is so insidiously woven through all our institutions that even Newcastle Football Club, it's not exactly the Green Party. Every organisation.
They're owned by Saudi Arabia.
But the Green Party is becoming now the next go for the people in Gaza who support throwing gay guys off the top of buildings and trans people. So I don't know how they're going to make those. What do they call that when you make the squares, the circle, the square?
How are they going to square the circle?
How are you going to square the circle? How are you going to get those two teams,
I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be fun watching them try. Well, we've got the Times now, and 2 decades on from the Rotherham scandal, it looks like the police are still making similar mistakes, Nick.
Yeah, it's victim-blaming Met waits for missing children to turn up. So there was a review from the police inspectorate into the Metropolitan Police, and they found some quite shocking things, such as the staff used victim-blaming language, including describing a 12-year-old girl who had been raped as sexually active with older men. That's awful. And then another girl, 14, was described as seeking out sex with older men. So obviously a 14-year-old can't have that kind of agency or can't be blamed in that way. But so the language is very disturbing. And yeah, the accusation that they just often wait for them to turn up. And they were more concerned about successful prosecution rather than safeguarding children. So it's pretty damning. And as you say, there is some form in this with the police in general, with the grooming gangs and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, it's one of those ironies because it's a 14-year-old girl is not allowed to leave the house, but she's allowed to get her gender sex changed.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that's a separate issue, but yeah, in certain parts of society, you know, children are allowed to make long-reaching, life-changing decisions.
Yeah, they don't ask the police to check on that, to go into the grooming gang that is that was the Tavistock Centre.
Yeah. Well, they will when you're Prime Minister. Moving on, we've got the Telegraph with a story that started as an interview on GBNews about councils wasting millions on useless, divisive, counterproductive diversity training.
Yes, that is so amazingly true because we saw her here. She was here. She's like Esther McVeigh. She seemed lovely. She said she's a big fan of our show.
Well,
so,
if you're listening, Esther, we're a big fan of yours.
Yes, we are. Anybody who likes us is great. But she says she listens to us on radio, which I think my tie is wasted and my great hair and and my beautiful.
She can probably picture you.
She can. Well, she does now. She does now. She's going to picture me outside her house.
Please tell us the story. Before you say something that's going to get you
Stop whatever you're doing.
This is my last show, really. I'm on fire tonight. Bad, very bad. She says, so she was on the program, and she says to the councils, ditch diversity training and away days if you want to increase tax. So she's saying to these councils, if you want us to give you more money, stop wasting the money on diversity days and DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah. And some of these councils they want to put up their tax rate by 10%, which is a huge hike.
Yeah. And just to give you some facts, because someone's got to, there was a study that found that across, someone's got to do the boring bit, across 397 councils, 794. There were 794 equality, diversity and inclusion members of staff. Actually, it's equity. I don't even know why it says equality, because it's normally equity, isn't it? And this is costing 67,000 per council, so 30 million a year across the country, this rubbish is costing us. And you have to remember, it's not just that DEI is wasteful and useless, it's actively evil, it's actively bad, it's racist, it's against meritocracy, so it's, you know, it's actually...
And it's been proven not to work. It's been proven to make people more racist.
It's not even effective racism.
I'm not just talking about people in this group.
Right. It's against meritocracy. It's racist against white people, sometimes Asians, and it costs us millions. It's just awful. So it's great that Esther McVeigh is doing this, and it is actually common sense, isn't it? And that is the perfect name. And common sense.
Well, she isn't doing it. She's just saying it. She's saying, "Hey, you should." And 30 million pounds is not that much money.
No, she's saying you'll have to justify your budgets, and if you're going to put up bills, you can't be spending money on this rubbish.
That's what she's saying.
And we're seeing so many councils going bankrupt. I mean, Birmingham Council, for example, a lot of the sort of left-leaning councils are just spending way too much money and expecting the taxpayer to bail them out at the end of the day. You know what? We don't want it anymore.
It's like Rishi Sunak saying, "Don't come to Britain." She's saying this. Maybe she will. I don't know her. She seemed like a very strong person.
Anyway, we've got the Mail now, and another straight white male film character is going to be diversified. Not everybody's happy about it, Nick.
Yeah, it's Pirates of the Caribbean fans threaten boycott over rumoured Johnny Depp female replacement in Pirates 6. And they're saying, if it ain't Depp, I ain't watching. Which is... this was originally posted by an account called Unlimited L's, which sounds like a funny account. It means L's meaning losses, of course. And the rumour is that Ayo Edebiri, something like that, was going to take it over. I did look up how to pronounce her name, still got it wrong. Anyway, she was going to replace Johnny Depp. It was only a rumour. It's that she's actually going to be involved in a spin-off. But it is this problem where you get rid of the good actors people want to see because of some sort of stupid scandal. We're going to have a cancelled Hollywood. We'll have Kevin Spacey, Gina Carano, Johnny Depp. Do you know what I mean? It'll be better than the original Hollywood eventually when they cancel everyone.
Yeah, because they'll be doing new studios. I mean, I like Disney. I've gotten a lot of work from Disney. I was in the Star Wars, the new Star Wars TV show made by Disney. But they said there's a catch of why this movie can't be made. And the catch is Johnny Depp doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to work with these people, number one. And number two, it's going to be a failure because Depp fans won't see it. In the same way they didn't want to see Aquaman 2 because Amber Heard was in it, even for like 20 minutes. They didn't want to see it. Right. So they're go broke.
Go woke.
Go woke.
Go woke. Go woke. Go broke.
Go broke.
Anyway, that's it for part 3. We nearly got that right. Coming up in part 4, we've got artworks being destroyed for selfies, sexual harassment in fashion, and how to be attractive. See you in a couple of minutes.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
The Camila Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30.
What you've got to do is, it's a collective. You've got to look like a meteorologist. Nobody out there is necessarily going to be a meteorologist, but what I do on a daily basis is I look globally. I look at what we've got in terms of the track of weather that we've had in the UK. So if you go back a couple of years and we go back to the heat wave of July, August 2022, 40.3 degrees, there's a dot in the landscape, and before then there was other incidents going on. Now that was a huge dot because that was extreme temperatures, and then we, since then, last summer, although we didn't get that kind of record, we saw months with records, various months, May and June and September and October, all-time records. So another dot, and then you're looking again globally. What's going on globally? What's going on in China, in USA, in Africa, now in Australia, for example, records falling like 9 pins. So when these storms come along, you've got to say, okay, would they have happened anyway? The answer is probably yes. They probably would have done. But when you start getting where we're up to with Jocelyn is number 10, then that's not the record. The record is 11. Named storms, 2015-16. So we've been there before, but only a few years ago. So these things are starting to mount up. And do you know what? On the can of climate change, climatologists, better people than me, people who study this expertly, and they look at it and they say, okay, what we're going to get with extra dimension of heat in the atmosphere, which energy and heat that basically means that you've got more intense storms potentially that can carry more water. What do you get? You get higher wind velocities and you get more water and or snow. We've just gone through a period where parts of this country have been deluged and flooded for the first time.
Yes. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
UK.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got The Guardian now with a new sitcom whose creator says that they find racism funny. This sounds like it could be worth watching, Lewis.
Oh, is this me?
This is you.
Racism funny. Where did I go? I think I lost my story.
Yeah, sorry. It's actually got my name at the top of the story.
It does.
Do you want to read this? Or do you want to...
I think I changed it. Is this
right
it?
here.
Oh,
You're
tone-deaf
literally looking
teachers paint things... Do you know what? I didn't read this.
All right,
I did read
highlighted
it.
it.
You made notes.
I did read it. I mean, you know what happened? Sorry.
You're on television.
I did
live television.
I'm going to lead the Democrat Party.
I know. That was my imitation of Joe Biden.
I feel like I'm in one of Lewis's dreams.
Yeah, this is, I find racism quite funny, a black teen comedy on the BBC savaging UK private schools. And this is a story of five black kids going to a posh boarding school and all the shenanigans they have. It's on the BBC. And number one, it's on the BBC, so I'm not interested. Number two, it's about kids, teens. I'm not interested. It's about boarding school. I'm not interested. It's the whole. I'm not going to go say what else I'm not interested in, but I'm just not interested. And
people not like you.
And people not like you.
Look, it's going to be great. There's a bit where they say to one of the white classmates that Stormzy is the black guy's cousin. Imagine the hilarity therein.
That's a very funny joke.
Very, very funny. And he says, yeah, and Skepta and Giggs. And it's like, oh, yeah, because white people think that black people must know all the rappers. That's the joke there, because we're all sort of horrible racists. But what they should do is they should make one about anti-white racism, like set in the RAF or something like that, right?
Yeah.
For due impartiality, it's the BBC, so they've got to make one about anti-white racism. It's all about racism.
Yeah, but can you imagine how the oily self-congratulation that this BBC executive who commissioned this had when he's like, oh my God, we're going to have 5 urban, working class, black teens in a private school. Oh my God, I'm so wonderful.
Yeah. And he gets to visit his old school. It's like a free trip to his old school. The thing that I found egregious is that the characters all have African names, most of them. Josh Deku, Omar Kawendo, Aruna, they're African names, which completely marginalizes the Afro-Caribbean population of this island. So
quite often have very British names.
Yes, who have British names. So there's basically the Caribbeans, from what I know, they feel like they're being pushed down by these Africans who come in with an attitude. That's what I've heard.
We've got the Telegraph now.
This is my worst show.
This is your last one. You've had worse shows than this.
Have I had worse?
The Telegraph now, and our vapid attention-seeking youth are destroying our cultural heritage, literally in this case, Nick.
Yeah, museums hit with losses after selfie takers walk backwards into paintings. I mean, just idiocracy. This is a pure idiocracy. I mean, they're calling it a pandemic of selfies that's forcing museums and galleries to install protective barriers against these absolute half-wits. These people should be deported. These are more people that should be deported. I mean, they're sort of pointing out it neutralises what their normal brain function would be, which is a really nice way of saying it. Yeah. They're so thick they can't think of two things at once. Like, oh, I'm taking a picture, so I've forgotten about space and not bumping into things.
And also because they're in the online world, they're in the digital world where they've got the selfie stick out, so they don't care about the real world.
Just quickly, and one of them destroyed a $200,000 piece, but it is modern art anyway, so it's all rubbish. And actually, you could argue the selfie people bumping into things could be the new modern art anyway, right? Yeah. That could be the art. How do you know that's not the art anyway? It's modern art.
And it's getting people to go into museums, the most boring places on earth.
Okay,
they are boring.
We've got the Independent now, and a Tory peer is outraged that Domino's is selling a cookie that's unhealthy. Listen, it's Domino's. The whole menu's unhealthy. Luke.
Yes, it is, because it violates the Randall cycle of putting fat and carbs together. Very bad for you. But Tory peer criticizes Domino's over egregious, I love that, Easter Christmas egg cookie, which is made out of cookie and Cadbury's, and it's got cookies in the middle. And the truth is,
with cookies in it.
It's got cookies in it. The truth is, this is coming from a Tory peer, Lord Bethel, and he says it's unhealthy. It's an unhealthy diet. No. The truth is, it's not unhealthy.
Why do you... This isn't unhealthy.
It isn't. It is not unhealthy.
It's got cream eggs in it.
No, it doesn't, because cookies, if you eat 12 cookies, you can lower your cholesterol level by over 70%.
That sounds like the maddest thing you've ever said.
It sounds like the maddest thing.
How can you lower your cholesterol by eating 12 Cadbury's cream egg cookies?
You can Google that. Google Oreo cookie experiment or Oreo cookie cholesterol. You can Google it and see whether it...
Just go straight to Lewis's website. This is...
yeah, you'll have to buy his calendar. We're just going to try and squeeze this one in. We've got the Mail now, and a fashion boss has given his female employees some useful advice, but they're not happy for some reason, Nick.
Yeah, women at female empowering fashion firm Missy Empire were told to join OnlyFans instead of getting pay rises by bullying male boss who reduced them to tears in toxic workplace. So this guy, Sadiq, something like that, yeah, and he set up this company, but then he said to him, why don't you just join OnlyFans if you want some more money, which sounds kind of quite funny and like banter, but then there's also this claim that staff were asked to model clothes for the managing director, which sounds less like banter.
Yeah, that's more Harvey Weinstein level.
Yeah, a little bit Schaefer. Sorry.
But somebody has to model the clothes, so I don't see what's wrong with that. I mean, it's OnlyFans. It's totally legitimate. Sex work is totally legitimate.
I'm just worried that you found out about OnlyFans now. You're going to have an account to replace the calendar. Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. The Times leads with, I'll ease tax to reward hard work, vows Sunak. The Daily Mail has, Iranians recruit pilgrims to spy in Britain. The Telegraph has British firms giving up on British workers. The Mirror leads with King bonds with Fergie over cancer. The Daily Express has Boris mulling over pleas to help Tories fight election. And the Daily Star has Baldies are #1 love gods. And those were your front pages, and that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Lewis Schaefer and Nick Dixon. Nick will be back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Steve N. Allen and Sean Mayo. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, do stay tuned for breakfast. Good night.
Wave.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Earlier on GB News Radio.
There really is only one place to start today, and that's that extraordinary interview, Vladimir Putin's blockbuster interview with American journalist Tucker Carlson. And almost 2 years after Russia invaded Ukraine, Putin revealed that he's ready to hold negotiations to end that war. In fact, the Russian president even claimed the war could have been over 18 months ago, but Boris Johnson stopped it.
I think you're saying you want a negotiated settlement to what's happening in Ukraine.
Right. And we made it. We prepared a huge document in Istanbul that was initialed by the head of the Ukrainian delegation. He affixed his signature to some of the provisions, not to all of it. He put his signature, and then he himself said, we were ready to sign it and the war would have been over long ago, 18 months ago. However, Prime Minister Johnson came, talked us out of it, and we missed that chance. We may go back and forth endlessly, but they stopped negotiations. Is it a mistake? Yes. Correct it. We are ready. What else is needed?